Explain first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. Now this question from the interviewer's perspective is a very basic question. It's a very basic question, and if someone is not answering this question, it sends a very wrong message to the interviewer. Now what happens is, people who work with databases day and night, they are writing SQL, they are cleaning up data, they are doing performance tuning. So it is very rare that developers tend to remember definitions, right? So it is very rare that developers will tend to remember these definitions. So I would suggest everyone, please go prepared for the interview. Do not think that preparation is a low kind of activity. It is an important activity. It is an important process to make sure that you clear the interview. So let us first start with the first normal form. A table is in a first normal form design when the column have atomic values. A database is in a first normal form, or it fulfills first normal form when the columns have atomic values or they do not have repeating groups. So what do you mean by atomic values? Atomic values means, for example, look at this. This is a name column out here. So this is a primary key. This is the name of the person. And in this name of the person, we have the first name. So Shiv is the first name, Hari is the middle name, and Koirala is the surname, right? And what I've done is I have just stuffed them into this column name out here with comma separated. So this is called as repeating groups. So the first normal form says that if your database design is not following first normal form, you can have insert, update, and delete anomalies. Anomaly means when you want to do an insert, when you want to do an update, when you want to do a delete, you have to write weird code. Think about it. If I want to go to the second record, Raju, and if I want to go and update the surname, what kind of query I have to write? Let us say that if I want to go and delete the surname, let's say if I want to delete this third record surname, what kind of query I have to write? I have to write weird queries, right? So it leads to very weird insert, update, and delete, right? So what the first normal form says is that create different columns. Every column should have a single value. So you should be having like first name, you should be having like middle name, and you should be having like last name, right? So atomic value, so that means that Hari goes here and then Koirala goes here like this. So this is called as you are satisfying the first normal form. So it should have atomic values. Second normal form. In second normal form, first, all the rules of first normal form should be followed. Means the table should have atomic values and should not have repeating groups. Second, all non-key columns. For example, here you can see in this table, we have like 4 non-key columns. All non-key columns should be fully dependent on the primary key. So we can see here we have a joint primary key of ID and the country ID. Okay. So first name, yes, it is fully dependent on the key. If this middle name and last name, they are also fully dependent on the key. But look at this country name. The country name is only dependent on this, partially dependent on the country ID. It is not directly connected with the customer. So we already have the country ID, and on that it is partially dependent, right? So we should not have any column which is having partial dependency on the key. So what we do out here, we remove this country name and we move it out from here, and because this country ID is already here, right? So in the master table, you already have country ID. So we just move it out here in a master table or something, and we remove the column from there. So we say that a table is in second normal form when there is no non-key column which is partially dependent on the primary key. It should be fully dependent on the primary key. Third normal form. In third normal form, first thing, the table should satisfy all the first normal form and second normal form. In third normal form, we should not have any transient dependency. Transient dependency means there should not be any non-key column which should depend indirectly on a other non-key column. For example, you can see here, this is the customer list, and it says that this customer has bought shoes, shirts, and shoes. Now every product has a cost. Now that cost is also here in this table. Now this per product cost is dependent on this product out here. This non-key column's value is dependent on this non-key column's value, right? So this is a transient dependency. Now what should really happen out here? You should have a product master, right, somewhere, and there you should have the cost and the size of the product, whatever it is, right? So we'll say here, okay, shoes is 10 and shirts is 20, right? Extra large or whatever, size of 8 and so on. And then we don't need it here, right? So when we say, okay, shoes, we look up here and we get the cost. So there should not be any transient dependency of non-key column on the other non-key column. So in other words, putting forward a complete answer, you can remember this word apt. Apt. Remember in interview, sometimes you can use acronyms to remember things. Apt. Apt means appropriate. A for atomic values. All the columns, should have atomic values. We should not have repeating groups. P, partial dependency. Partial dependency means, we should not have any non-key column which is partially dependent on the primary key. And finally, T, transient dependency. We should not have any non-key column which is dependent on another non-key column, right? It is apt. Apt means appropriate. It is apt to use apt to get a job. Everything is fair in getting a job and war, right? So remember this word apt, and always remember that for such kind of questions, right, these words like transient, partial dependency, atomic, non-repeating groups, anomalies, it's very difficult to remember them. So I would suggest, please go ahead, put down your answers in a Excel somewhere, right, or in a Word document, and just revise them. There is no shame or there is no low thinking, to revise something, right? So use good technical vocabularies like atomic, transient, partial dependencies, anomalies, right, to answer this question, right? So again, I repeat the answer: atomic, partial dependency, and transient.